Brian Hargis. I'm the chaplain for the 157th Infantry Brigade up at Camp Atterbury, Indiana. And I'm here with my right hand, the better part of me, Tracy Hargis. So Tracy's got an important role tonight, as of every marriage seminar. Tracy, tell us a little bit about your role tonight and what you're going to do.
Well, I'll be watching your comments if you have any questions, or even if you have any questions later for Brian, you can either email or do any Facebook private messaging if you'd like. That's right.
So if you have comments, please put those right there in the comment section. If you have private questions, I've placed down at the bottom of your screen the 157th Infantry Brigade UMT email address, so you can email me privately if you'd like to set something up for counseling, either one-on-one or as couples for marriage, especially if you're 157. That's what I'm there for. I'm not just a soldier's chaplain. I'm the family spouse's chaplain as well. And if you're not part of 157, hey, you're welcome to be part of our family. And this video is for everyone to learn and to grow from. Now, if you missed the seminars and you're joining us and you'd like to go back and see some of those, you'd like to forward that link to a friend, you can view those on our Facebook page that you're on right now. Just scroll down and you can find seminars 1 through 5. And if that's not enough, if you'd like to view those on YouTube and send out a link, well, that YouTube link, or at least what the name of the page is on YouTube, is right there at the bottom of your screen. Just type in 157th Infantry Brigade Unit Ministry Team, or UMT, into Facebook, and you're going to get our page. You'll get to see those videos and forward them to others. Module number 6, Stages of Emotional Development and Conflict Resolution. These are emotional levels of development. And as you see that slide, I'm going to talk through some of these things, because all humans, we develop in the stages of emotional maturity, just as we do in physical maturity. Just as a baby grows into an adult, so we as individuals grow through stages emotionally, intellectually. The emotional stage of development, it's most evident when people face various situations. And it's most prominent when people are under what, Trace? Stress. Man, when the stress comes out, that's how you can tell that you can see where a person's status is in their emotional development. I mean, think about babies. Babies look for what other people do for them because they cannot take care of themselves. Tracy, what are some of the things that we have to do for babies?
Feed them, change them.
Yeah. Now, none of this is rehearsed, but she's had, you couldn't tell it because, you know, she's so hot, but she's had 3 babies, and now they're grown boys, all over 160 pounds. Yeah. And we had 3 boys, and all of them we've seen mature through different stages of emotional development, and some of them are stuck in different ages. But babies, when they're so young, they can't change their diaper, they can't feed themselves. They are provided joy from the parents, and it's a joy to take care of them. However, as adults, if we are in a relationship with another adult who is stuck in an emotional stage as being a baby, they rarely give back. And a strong connection to them is unlikely, and eventually it'll wear on us. Now I'm going to move through these kind of quickly. Let's talk about the child. Children have trouble navigating through difficult circumstances in their life. When they don't get their way, what do?
Cry.
They cry, they pout. Do they throw tantrums?
Yes.
Have you ever seen a kid in Walmart throwing a tantrum? I want this. Why didn't you buy me that? Oh my goodness. We were in Bass Pro Shop the other day, and this lady was pushing around this child that was just whining and complaining because her mom wouldn't go take him to look at the 4-wheelers. And I was just in amazement. I was thinking about this lesson that we were going to teach. So they throw tantrums, they whine, they break things. Some adults get stuck in that phase too when they don't get their way. They punch holes in walls, they throw temper tantrums, and relationships, they cannot be healthy when people in that relationship do not seek respectful solutions and discussions to communicate. Now, adolescents, these are these teenagers, sense that the world is trying to confine and trying to control and manipulate them. And they want to fly their own, they want to be the own captain of their ship. They want to fly their own plane in life. And they try to make their identity known. And sometimes they see other people coming into their life as a threat to their own authority that they're establishing. We see this with parents as we interact with them. Sometimes teens see our help as a threat to them, spreading their wings and flying. Well, as adults, husbands and wives, sometimes we get stuck, and some people worry that others are trying to control them or manipulate them or not give them what they need in a relationship. And this attitude causes distance. PYC, do you remember what that means, Trace? It's been a while.
No, I don't remember.
Parents of young children. PYC, parents of young children. Now, this is a stage of emotional development that's evident when parents don't take care of their relationship here because they think it's best to pour into their child. So when you pour into your child, you put so much attention into the child that this relationship begins to get strained and waned. And they may say, well, you know what? You're an adult. You do it. I've got to take care of my child. And so after a while, our relationship can get strained, and as we pour into the baby. Many couples have the best intentions about being great parents, but they get stuck in the PYC emotional level of development, and that ends up splitting the family. And that's pretty sad. There are normal stages of emotional development. They're like stages of physical development. It takes time. These muscles that you see or used to see, man, they took time to develop. In order to get my bench press above 400 back in the day, it just didn't happen overnight. It took hard work and effort to get to that level. Whatever the case may be, may have taken an Army physical fitness test, or Matt, you're looking in here. You may have tried some physical feat that you were training for. It takes time to grow into that. So emotional stages are like physical development. They're just harder to see. Now, it's easy to see when someone's emotional development stage when they're under stress or it comes out. But listen, babies don't grow into adults overnight, nor do you mature emotionally in 1 year of marriage. It may take several years. Some people mature quicker than others. In fact, statistically, females mature faster than men. Isn't that right, Matt? I know you're watching. We lack in comparison sometimes to our wives. No, seriously. Physically, we may mature quickly as men, but intellectually, emotionally, mentally, we're still in the growing process even after females are maturing. Plus, you may not know the stage of emotional development you are in until you're under pressure. So, if you're an emotional baby, just think about identifying that or what stage you're in and learn as we go through to just grow up and mature in your relationship. It's really going to help. I spend a lot of time on that, but I'm not going to. Go ahead and look at the slide. Tracy, if you'll read that for us.
It is not how often we disagree, but how poorly we behave when we disagree that makes us miserable.
Right. So are we going to disagree?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not how often. We may have, oh man, you know what? I had a baby skunk I found in the yard the other day, and we disagreed. I mean, big time, butting heads. She's like, it's either the skunk or me. And I said, well, I'm going to miss you. No, I did think about that, but it's like, no, it's not about that. Yeah, we disagreed a lot over a few things the last couple of days till poor little bandit, as Levi named him, little bandit died this morning and we buried him. But it's how poorly we behave when we disagree that makes us miserable. It's the words that come out of our mouths. And those things that can hurt and leave permanent emotional scars. Next one, Trace.
All humans develop in stages of emotional maturity.
And last.
Which stage are you in?
Again, we're encourage you to think, where am I at as we go through this? So let's go through it. As we look at these, we talked about the infant. What are you going to do for me? Babies look for what others do for them because they cannot do for themselves. They're takers. They're not givers. And we expect it. We find joy in meeting their needs. But dealing with an adult emotional baby is draining because we're always taking care of them. They cry. They make messes. They need, their diaper changed. They rarely give back. They may be cute, but cute only lasts so long. It gets what, Tracy? It gets old. It gets old caring for an emotional baby. Next stage. I don't know how to solve problems without a tantrum. Yeah, well, children can just be just as bad as babies because when they don't get what they want, again, they throw tantrums, whine, break things. At least babies only cry. Children can actually talk and cause a fuss and pout. And a lot of spouses get stuck in this stage. Next one, adolescent. I don't negotiate well because I think people want to control me. We talked about that. They don't want to be controlled. They often rebel against the established authority in their life. It could be a supervisor. It could be the role that you find yourself in a relationship. And that's not good for a relationship either. They don't listen to their spouse's need. Moving on to PYCs, we talked a little bit about this, but just be careful not to place so much attention on that child that it separates the relationship. And I wrote a lot about this in chapter 9 of my book, Marriage is a Four-Letter Word. The chapter was Reasonable Rules for Raising Rugrats. And we talked about how the focus sometimes shifts to the child, that it separates, the couple. And think about this. If that child passes away, as sad as it may sound, as an infant or a teenager, who are you left with? You're left with your spouse. So before everything else, of course, God, your spouse has to come first and second place. It has to be right up there. And then the children. You say, well, Brian Chaplin, I don't really like your theory on that. I understand you don't necessarily agree with that perspective, but after everything else has moved on, it's still her and I. So we've got to work at this relationship and keep things tight and keep things in love. All right, Tracy, go ahead and read that for us.
Marriages have a greater risk of breaking up during the first 5 years after the birth of the first child. This is usually the parents with young children emotional stage.
Right. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in there, but statistically true that, there's so much emphasis placed on a child that it can really bring stress to the relationship, especially with military families too. Do you have something to add?
No, we've seen this actually happen. So where the child was the number
center
one
of attention, right?
Center, man. It was terrible.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't shower your kids with love and affection, but be careful about spoiling them and putting they say your eggs in one basket. Be careful about all that. Your first priority is to your spouse. All right, the last one I'm going to talk about here is the adult emotional. This is a grown-up stage. And in the quotes here said, I want to know what helps or pleases you. If I can, I will probably do it. So the grown-up stage, now these grown-ups here, these adults have evolved through all of these emotional levels of development throughout their course in time. It could be 21 years, it could be 31 years, it could be us 50. It could have taken a long time to get to the adult emotional level of development. But they've evolved through the experiences of these other 4 stages, and they understand that their spouse, their partner, has needs. And what they do in this stage is they seek to identify those needs and then pour into it to fulfill it. If I know that she has a need for self-satisfaction, identification, then I try to fulfill that and point her in the direction of things that bring satisfaction and joy to her life. We try to help each other out. They understand it. They try to fill it. And they've learned that our differences at this age, they're not a threat. The differences, they don't really matter. The differences actually make you stronger. Because if we were both the same, what fun would that be? And that's the problem in relationships, is so often we're trying to change the other person and make them like us. Well, if you'd only be like me, and if you only did what I did, well, that would be no fun, because then you're living with yourself and you may think, oh yeah, I'd like that. But it'd only be fun for a while. That's not how God designed us or wants us. Our differences are not a threat. And we know that in this stage that emotions can be managed, expressed, and handled with skill. And here's another thing. At this age in life, at this stage, you can say no to something they want, and they're not going to cry about it and throw a temper tantrum like a child. She can. I remember when I was in Fort Polk, and I remember calling her and I said, "Hey, baby, these AR-15s, they just went on sale at Walmart. You think I could, do we have enough money in our checkbook so I can get one of these?" And, she would have told me, no, I'm not going to cry and throw a fit about it. I'm going to trust her judgment because we've matured through these stages. She manages the finances, by the way. But, if she said, "Hey, we need to stop spending for this, it's not going to offend me." Or if I say, "Hey, Tracy, we need to do this better. I need more of this in a relationship." No, you're not going to worry about those things because you've already matured and you can freely talk about things without walking on eggshells around each other. Does that make sense? If you understand what I'm talking about and you've seen these stages, go ahead and put some comments down there in the comment section. I'd like to see what you come up with, and if you have any questions as well. Okay, so here's where you need your scrap paper and your pen. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and look at this emotional stage chart here. And hey, do this individually. Don't be pointing out what your partner does or doesn't do, but use this chart and look at number 1 and just go across. It says number 1, Tracy says what?
When I don't get my way, I cry, pout, threaten, or listen.
So think about it and be honest. When you don't get your way, what do you tend to do? Now put your name on this and fill this out for you, and just press put number 1 and then put what you do. Do you listen? Do you pout? All right, now put a number 2, drop down, put a number 2, and Tracy, go ahead.
When my spouse tells me I've done something wrong, I think he or she should care more about me.
That's the infant stage.
Get mad,
That's the child stage.
Walk away, or try to figure out whether I can change it or not.
Okay, now honestly, what do you do when your spouse says, "Man, you messed up big time"? And it may be it may depend on what the subject is too, how atrocious it is. But what do you do? And then
I'm sorry, I'm reading.
We'll get to the comments just a minute. Number 3, Tracy.
When I want something changed, I either cry, tantrum, and blame, or just take and do it myself, or I ask.
Okay, so where are you at emotionally? Now that you've filled that out for you, I wonder what it would look like if you filled one out for your spouse. I wonder if those would match up. So Tracy, if you put, "When I don't get my way, I listen," and I fill one out for you and I said, "No, when she doesn't get her way, she pouts about it." I wonder if those would really marry up, because I think how we look at ourselves, the way that we perceive ourselves and the way that we really are, sometimes those are clashing. Mm-hmm. So maybe you want to share those with your spouse, and you can look at theirs and say, that's not right. Number 3 is when I want something changed, you're not calmly asking me. You throw a tantrum. You blame me. What's some of the comments, Tracy, you're laughing at over there?
No, on Matt, he said let me see, I forget. I get upset.
Yep. And again,
I don't know which one that was for, but I get upset. Yep. I hear Rudy likes coffee in the morning or else.
I got to have my coffee in the morning.
Brian's the same way.
That's right. So again,
don't talk to Brian until he has his coffee.
And this one goes back to seminar number 3, timing successful communication. Don't hit me up with life's questions at 7 in the morning. Let me have my coffee, give me some time, and then hit me up. But thanks for sharing that.
And then Matt says I get defensive, and Monica, she gets defensive also.
We get defensive because, man, that's a protective measure. We get triggered, and we just got to work on it. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at any of these, and she can. What are you laughing for?
This one, Rudy girl gets upset, pouts, and makes me do it anyway.
Well, that's a good husband, because happy wife is happy life. That's right. So we got to get her done. You guys are funny. That's good. Thanks for interacting with us. Okay, Tracy, go ahead. During conflict resolution, what's important?
It is very important to apply an adult stage of emotional development when resolving conflict.
Yeah, and I want you to think about how that we can be different at work than we are at home. This can be dangerous. You know, some people demonstrate better emotional development, better communication at work with their superiors and their subordinates than they do at home. And that's what's sad. You know, some people come home from work, kick off their boots, grab a beer from the refrigerator, plop on the recliner, turn over to ESPN, and the rest of their conversation, their conversation for the rest of the night is, yeah. And all day long, they've been shooting, moving, and communicating, directing, organizing, planning, all that stuff. And then they come home and just like flip the switch. That's not cool either. Listen, we have to be disciplined not only at work, but at home as well. Y'all know the example of a mechanic that may keep their toolbox dress, and everything right and fix everybody else's car. And then they're driving the crappiest car around and their garage is a mess. I'm just saying that what we do at home and what we do at work, they need to mirror each other and they both need to be well. What you see right now with me at home and us at home is what you're going to see out there. I'm not saying we don't argue or we won't have some friction or we won't have some conflict, but it's more mature, I would think, in our emotional development, and what you see is what you get. All right, let's look at this one. Sharing the meaning of the intended message. Now, as we're progressing on this, we've already understand the stages of emotional development, and I want you to try to identify where are you at in those stages. Which stage are you in, or which stage are you most likely to fall into under stress? And now we're going to take that stage and we're going to turn it into how to communicate and share the meaning of the intended message. So, these are the nuts and bolts. Now, let me ask you a question, Tracy. Who gets to decide the meaning of the message? Now, this isn't a trick question, but think about it. Is it the speaker or the listener? Who gets to decide the meaning of the message? We haven't rehearsed this, so.
The speaker.
Yes. Why? Why do you think?
Because he needs to say what the meaning of it is. He needs to explain it correctly.
That's right. The speaker is the only one that knows what in the world they're talking about.
No. Yeah.
The listener is the one hearing. So the person responsible for painting and creating shared meaning and understanding is not the listener. It's not up to the listener to try to decipher and put all the puzzle pieces together and paint the picture like an investigator. It is the speaker's responsibility to ensure that the listener adequately hears and understands them. They have to describe what they mean so the listener doesn't get mixed messages. But when both people understand that the message, when they understand it as it's intended by the speaker, then it's called shared meaning. They both share the same meaning, and that's unity. It's both of us on the same sheet of music. An example. If Tracy says to me about the budget here, what could you say that we could have shared meaning or understanding?
We need to talk about the stuff you've been buying off of Amazon.
Oh, man. Wait, say that again?
We need to talk about the stuff you've been buying off of Amazon.
Okay, so just by her saying that, we go back to lesson number 4, managing triggers. When she says, and this is true, we need to talk about the stuff you're buying off of Amazon, I feel triggered. Now, it would help for her to have the adult emotional state to give a little more context to that. So that kind of cools my jets. And she gives shared meaning and understanding. So, Tracy, add a little context to it.
Okay. I need to know exactly what you're spending on Amazon so that somebody else is not using our Amazon account.
Oh, okay. That's good because
a lot of times I do that with you. I'm like, you need to let me know how much you're spending.
Yeah. Because
I don't know if it's a fraudulent charge or what.
Right. Especially when it's coming from Ching Guang Chong in China or eBay
All your
purchases.
China, yeah.
So that's a good way. When you first said, hey, I want to talk about what you're spending on Amazon, for like, whoa, wait a minute. What is she checking up on me now? But when you just stated, instead of you, a statement, it was I need to know what's going on so that I can do X, Y, and Z. Then that gives context. It gives shared meaning. And it helps us have adult emotional state of intelligence. Hope that is a good example for you. So here's how you do it. Step 1, Tracy.
If you tell your friend what you understand he or she is saying, they will know whether you heard it in the way they meant it.
Right, and this could work. I know it says friend, but we're dealing with friends, spouses, co-workers, etc. Number 2.
If you didn't hear the message in the way the speaker intended, they can tell you again, perhaps more clearly.
Right, so all it comes down to is just repeating what you heard. So Tracy, let's start out with that Amazon thing. Say what you, the question or the statement you said.
We need to talk about the Amazon charges that you
need to talk about
made.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that you're accusing me of spending too much on Amazon? Is that what you're saying?
No, I just need to know exactly the amounts that you're charging.
What? So you're trying to check up on me? What? You don't trust me with the budget?
No, I just want to make sure because we have been hacked before. I just want to make sure that these amounts are correct.
How do you feel?
And now we're not getting double charged.
Okay, time out. How do you feel right now when I come at you that way?
Don't you come at me that way. I'm going to tell you.
Do you feel, how do you feel emotionally? Do you feel anger? Do you feel defensive?
Angry. Like, help me out here.
Right.
You're the one spending the money.
Right. And what she did was really good as she was trying to develop and share that meaning as a speaker. I was coming back with her and saying, so you're trying to accuse me? She's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. And then she gives context to actually what she's trying to say to steer me into a shared meaning. So that now I know what she's saying, and that no, she is not trying to accuse me. She's not trying to micromanage me. She's trying to help our marriage. And she didn't get defensive. She didn't attack. And again, she used the adult method of emotional intelligence, where I was more like in the adolescent at that point, where I was defensive and I wanted to be my own ruler and those kind of things. So I hope you can see that clearly. Do we have comments?
No.
All right. So here's the rewards. When you use a shared meaning, you're more likely to what, Tracy?
Feel listened to, cared about, and understood.
Yeah.
Feel connected because of the expression with respect. And avoid unnecessary misunderstandings and arguments.
Yeah, so shared meaning, it takes work. But listen, it's going to pay off. Plus, when you feel heard, when you feel cared about, when you feel understood, you feel loved and you feel more connected. And we know that it's needed in relationships. Guys, we know that we need to listen and we need to communicate better. And we need to put things in perspective. And sometimes we just got to turn off the TV and put our phones down, turn to the one that we are married to and just listen. And early on in our relationship, I know that this was one of the things with us. And she said, hey, are you hearing me? Are you listening to me? It's like, yeah, I'm listening, but I got the TV on. I got this going on. I got different things going on. And she says, then what did I say? And I would try to repeat it back. But listen, even though I may listen or I may hear some of those things, she needs to know that I'm listening. So what helps me is to do what, Tracy? When you really need something to talk about, what helps you to know that I'm listening?
Stop and look at me.
Yes, so just stop, put those things aside, put the phone down, turn, and give that person your undivided attention, and then communicate back, not just, and then go back to what you're doing. And sometimes that happens too, but it shouldn't be like that. All right, so we're going to learn to use these smart cards. Now, if you put in your email address, Tracy, go ahead and check our email, make sure. All right, you guys have this smart card. If you don't have it, just quickly put in your email address. Tracy will fire it to you, and you can look at this as I go through. Let me get over to our screen here, and let me enlarge this smart card right here. Now, you're not going to be able to see all of that, but at least it'll give you a glimpse of what we're trying to do here. Okay, let me get back to my slide presentation. So learning to use the smart card, this is this is just, all it is going to be a help. It just simply means shared meeting and resolution tool. So say that with me. Shared meeting and resolution tool. It's just a tool. And you can use it with friends. You could use it with teachers. You can use it with unit members, superiors, family members. In fact, Tracy, our boys have used it a handful of times because they have conflict and they need resolution. And I know it sounds, oh, Chaplain, are you serious? Yes, I have coached them through using this tool so that they come to an agreement. And one of our boys, he likes it. Isaac's our 16-year-old. He said, Dad, where's that card at? I want to use that with Levi. But Levi, he does not like to use it. He is hard-headed, and he wants things his way, and he doesn't want to use the stupid card. What he thinks is stupid anyway. So, all right, so you got the smart card. Now, there's some words to avoid using, and I'll get to those at the end, but mostly it's the words that end with an ED. Because those words that end in ED, they sound like they're blaming the listener. They sound like they're blaming the other person, and that puts them on the defensive instead of being sympathetic towards what you're trying to talk about. For instance, if you say, words like disrespected or disappointed or neglected, if you use those words against them, then that's going to be distracting. And again, we should always use I instead of you. If I say, when you did that, that ticked me off. Okay, so now she gets defensive because it makes it sound like she ticked me off. Instead of saying, when this happened, I felt what? Disrespected, unloved, uncared for, neglected. What did you feel? Instead of saying you, say I. I felt what? Don't say you did this to me or you disappointed me or you didn't give me what I need. No, state how you feel. When this happened, I felt whatever. There you go, your smart card. So here's some steps. They got some arrows. And Tracy, I'll let you read through those to the end. First thing is to what?
State the problem.
What's the problem? Don't beat around the bush. Just get to it. It could be, you know what, honey? It bothers me when we're late because of procrastination. Just get to the problem. And then number 2, Trace, is what?
Tell what you are logically thinking about.
Keep going.
Say why it bothers you.
Why does it bother you?
Say what part you may have had in creating the problem.
Yeah. Did you have a part in it? Are you, what do you call it? Embellishing? Are you emboldening? Are you creating this? Are you, I don't know, are you part of this? Next.
State how you want to remedy the situation.
Yep. And then?
Appreciate what is good regarding the person who is listening.
Right. At the very least, by using this card, you're gonna end the discussion better understanding and respecting each other. You say, well, I don't know about all this, but I'm telling you, by the end of it, at least you're gonna talk through something, and you'll draw closer together, and hopefully there won't be a smackdown drag out like WWF. That's not what we're trying to get to. So I want you to consider it like going to court. If you've ever been to court, go ahead and put in the comments. You don't have to tell us what the infraction was. I don't want to hear your felonies, but I've been to court many times. And I've been to court for speeding tickets when I was young, lots of times. I think like 10 times. As a police officer, I've been in court over 200 times, maybe 300 times, testifying against criminals and injustice or whatever the case may be, investigations. I've been in court lots of times. But there's a difference between going to court to testify against somebody else and going to court to defend yourself with the public defender or with the defender, with a lawyer. Have you ever been to court, Tracy?
No. Oh,
you went to court back in the day, right? But you had
that was for different.
Yeah, you had a prosecutor and a defender, and you had somebody in your corner, right?
Right.
And so, but that's stressful enough going to court and wondering what's going to say. But imagine going to court. And you show up to court and you've got 10 pieces of evidence. And each one of these pieces is an important piece of evidence to win your case. Each piece is a key to telling the story, the entire story. And you got to tell it all because they're all important. It paints the whole picture. Let's say the judge heard your first piece of evidence and he said, you know what, that's going to be all. I have my verdict. How would that make you feel?
Like nobody listened to me.
Yeah, it'd be horrible. He's like, wait a minute. You have your verdict. And they said, no, that's okay. I know what you're going to say with all the other 9 pieces of evidence, and I don't need to hear it. I've made up my mind. How would that make you feel?
Terrible.
Would you feel confident that they would have a right decision? They would have a right verdict based upon the one piece of evidence you gave?
No.
Not at all. You're like, oh, man, I'm going to jail, or this isn't going to be in my favor. Well, as a listener, don't assume that you know what the other person's going to say. Don't try to mind read or analyze. That's going to cause no good in a relationship. Don't interrupt. Only listen and take it to heart. Let them paint the pieces with the smart card to lay out all the things that they have to say without interruption. What I like to do is use an object of communication. This means when I have this,
you get to talk.
And you
get to listen.
Right. Zip it, zip, zillow, no, nothing.
No talking.
But when she has this, I can't talk. I just have to listen, absorb. And she may say after she's done, please repeat back what I'm saying, or do you understand what I'm saying? And then she gives it to me, and I say, okay, so what you're saying is you want me to communicate better about what I'm spending on Amazon. Is that correct? And she can clarify, or she can add to it, or she can say, no, that's not what I'm saying. This gives us what? Shared meaning and understanding. So here's some smart card tips. Tracy?
Be in the frame of mind to resolve. Think goodwill and respect. Ask if the other is willing to resolve with you. Partner A speaks first. And partner B shares meaning with A. And at end of the you, partners reverse roles.
We go through it again.
Use respectful body language and gestures.
Yeah, it wouldn't do any good if we're trying to go through this. And Tracy, I want to talk about, with you about how much you spent on Amazon. And she's like rolling her eyes, I wasn't really appreciative when I looked on there and saw $500 for a Louis Vuitton purse. And she's like, making all these gestures, and it's not going to help. Again, it's trying to understand each other, and of course how you approach it makes a difference. So when using a smart card, you must be disciplined to stay on course on the card. And if you don't have self-discipline habits, then you're going to struggle with this. So in the beginning, it's going to seem hard. It's going to seem difficult. And some of you might think it's just flat out childish. But, hey, when you try it the first time, it may not be as well as intended. Hey, remember the first time you tried ice skating? Was that easy? Did you just become an Olympic ice skater in 1 hour? No. I mean, it takes a little bit of time. It's not nearly as difficult as ice skating. It's just the fact is that it may be difficult at first, but then it gets easier over time to where you don't even need the card anymore. You can just talk to each other. And you can say things like, hey, baby, I want to talk to you about this behavior. With goodwill, I think that you are, and you can go on. I'm irritated when what I feel down inside is, I personally regret. What I specifically want is, and by the time you're done, you could say, are you willing to? And you go through it, and then she could say, I give her the ball, and she could say, all right. Well, my concern is, and you just go back and forth talking about the same subject of the events. Here's your card. My concern is, what is the behavior? Take procrastination as an example. With goodwill, I think that you mean to be on time, but then you don't take in consideration how long it takes to get ready and get to where you need to go. I'm irritable when we're late because whatever. What do you think,
Doesn't
Tracy?
look good.
No, we need to be there on time. We're missing some of the event. What I feel down deep inside is irritation. I really want to resolve. I personally regret that I haven't brought this to you, sooner. What I specifically want is us to be where we need to be on time by taking a little bit more time. I specifically want you to take more time before we need to be there somewhere instead of waiting till the last minute. As you head up to number 7, what I can do to help is, you can say I can remind you. You may not like that, but I hope to help you through this. If we don't both do it. By the time you get to number 10, you're repeating what you said in number 6. Are you willing to take 10 minutes earlier to prepare yourself to get to where we need to go? And then partner 2 begins, and they stay back. So you're concerned that I procrastinate, and you think that I intend to be on time, and you go through that, and then they could state what they're trying to say. 1 through 6 are the most important on the card. 7 through 10 are just a wrap up and a closing, and 10 is simple. Are you willing? And this is an example of just how it's done. Round 2, and then it's a back and forth discussion, speaking to each other respectfully to conclude the process. Now, remember I talked about those feeling words? They can sabotage a conversation. They can set off emotional triggers. So be careful about using blaming feeling words, and here are some. Now, they work if they promote compassion, but not if they promote shame. So here's some that may help rather than hurt. I feel what, Tracy?
Ashamed.
I feel
discouraged.
I feel
helpless.
I feel
lonely.
I feel
scared.
You can see how those work when they say I instead of you make me, you embarrass me. Or you know what? You just think I'm unimportant, don't you? Now, if you start with I feel
unimportant,
you're going to go, you're going to get further along in effective communication than you ever have before. Here's some to avoid. And here's some of the examples with it. Like disappointed. Well, you let me down instead of I feel disappointed. You're using me instead of I feel taken advantage of. Again, it's just a play on words, but it's very important in effective communication. It's called verbal jujitsu, and I love it. All right. So here's our recap, Tracy. We talked about the 5 levels of emotional development, and we learned that all of us as adults are in some certain stage, and we gravitate towards those levels most prevalently under what?
Stress.
Stress. It shows up. Sometimes you're going to see me under stress. I'll go to the adolescent stage of I want. But, the point is that we should all move to adult emotional development where we can speak what we want, we can not offend each other, and we can communicate effectively. And then we learn how to use the smart card. And by now, you all have the smart card in your inbox, your email. And if you still need that, or you want to share it with somebody else, please put your comments down there and let us know. Send us an email. We'll get it out to you. If you like these slides, I could send them to you. Again, it's through Strong Bonds. It's a military endorsed and accredited curriculum that we use. And we pour ourselves into it. We want to help you. We want you to know that you're cared for, you're appreciated, you're loved, and Tracy and I are all about helping marriages. We want to see the cold ones get warm, the warm ones get hot, and the hot ones stay what?
Hot.
We want to see you get and stay hot. So I hope you keep the love alive. This is Brian and Tracy. Leave your comments. We'll stick around for a little bit. We're going to mute our mic, but we are signing off. God bless you, and have a good night.